Almost 3 months ago, I started using Claude Code. I was able to build 3 applications, run it for 5 hours straight, build my own Cloud Toolkit out of it, which I'm using daily right now. Here's how I thought about it and how I think about it right now. Okay, so my first application that I wanted to build in December last year was a processing videos application where I just wanted to have the possibility to put a video from YouTube, take it out, download it, and then be able to process some shorts out of it. As an illustration of this application, I had a SaaS application where I had the front end and back end, one license portal service where I was using that to be able to process licenses for this application, because the idea initially was to just have it locally so that you could download as a user, but in the same time have the license portal on the cloud. And then another thing that this application had, it was the integration with Stripe, which was the first time that I was trying to build something like that. Going back to the project, this is my initial commit where I was able to push 52,000 lines of code. Of course, it's not that important, but the idea behind was that I was able to push the initial commit of or foundation of having those two applications, the license portal and the SaaS application, then some features for this application, and then the infrastructure overall, where I was able to have Olama configured, MySQL, Whisper for transcriptions, and then also Docker Compose for a local development environment. As a side note out of this, I'm a software engineer as a daily job where I'm trying to see the boundaries that this LLM has nowadays. Okay, going back to the commits, my initial idea was to just talk with Claude Code and build this application along the way. But then I thought about a thing. When I first started using Claude Code, it was 26th of December. We were with the whole family. I didn't want to stay the whole day in front of my computer. So one of the things that I was trying to build out of this project was to have an autonomous script, or let's say an autonomous configuration for Claude Code so he can build itself the whole application in the end with just a plan that I had to build myself. So as you can see here, all the commits are related to some phases, sprints, and so on. If we go back to the issues, we can see that we have a lot of issues. Close, we can see that all of them are including testing, refactoring, documentation, CI/CD, and so on. They are all with some tags. Everything that I was trying to build back then was based on the GitHub issues. But you might ask what went wrong, why I'm still having some GitHub issues open. It's because I have another tool that I was trying to build on top of this one while building the processing videos, which this tool, it's called Claude. So the idea sparked in my mind that I can actually build an orchestration tool out of the Claude Code where I can use it for different skill configuration or agents configuration or MCP configuration. And one of the steps of this project, which I started with, was to have actually another interface on top of Claude Code. So actually not having a toolkit, but actually having an orchestration tool or an interface in top of Claude Code, which actually was a bad idea back then because I just wanted to get everything good out of Claude Code. So as you can see, I started building some of the skills of this Claude orchestration tool, where one of them was to efficiently search on the Codebase, but in the same time, I was also finding out more and more MCPs that I can use. And if you can see, a few days later, I actually found out a nice tool, MCP tool actually, which is called LEANN Index, where I was able to use it to efficiently, let's say, actually in terms, good terms, efficiently search in my code base or in my folders with an index that had to be built before that. So I have actually added that to my Claude orchestration tool. And as a final output of this project, I had a few commands or skills that I have built. One of them was to just start the session with Claude, and the other ones were to just start autonomous work, where it was discovering, planning, executing, and shipping on autopilot everything, creating pull requests or creating GitHub issues, doing all the work that you have to do in a, let's say, small company or a big company. I have also built some of the flags, which one of them was plan only. Then I have built some plan day where I was able to just as a daily, run it, and then it was planning my day for this specific project, let's say processing videos. And then I was able to also build some of the methods that were helping, like next, which was just picking the next issue from the plan and so on. But one of the problems of this project was that was using tons of tokens, a lot of tokens, and besides that it was starting to hallucinate about tasks because it didn't know the context at all. It didn't know how to compact that context and use it continuously while working for, let's say, 3 hours. So one of the big problems as a software engineer was that I completely stopped reviewing all the pull requests from this tool. I started just chatting and relying on the Claude Code to do all the work without knowing what he's actually doing. So I didn't have any control on this tool at all. So the problem was not actually the AI, but it was actually me not giving a lot of direction how the AI has to build something. And I was actually just vibe coding, let's say, if you can say it like that. So I scrapped it, as I said, and then I started a new tool. One tool that I was thinking that maybe I can just have some sub-agents, I can just have some skills, I can just have some auto detection on my tech stack, just to pull out all those sub-agents that I would need, not just all of them, because maybe I'm in a project that only does TypeScript and Go. I don't need to pull something from an agent that does blockchain, or he's instructed to have some blockchain commands inside. And on top of that, I wanted to have full control on what the Claude Code is doing. So I can approve, I can see the plans, I can edit the plans, I can brainstorm the plans, I can go into a deep thinking, I can go into a deep dive inside the project, I can see what projects or repositories or parts of the projects is this GitHub issue tackling. So I wanted to have all of those. Then I started building this Claude Toolkit, where in theory I just wanted to have one single command where I can just start it, working on some issues, giving it some flags like --issues, the issues, some labels, and then I could just also have the automation, if you can say it like that. And then in top of this, I also wanted to have a quality assurance so that I can assure that I can, after the code is built, I can actually go one step back, review it again and again until I can actually know that everything is actually done. And during those 3 months, I've also learned and found out a lot of MCPs and how they are actually working. So I also wanted to have some of the MCPs that I'm using them daily, and one of them was deep thinking, which I've actually built myself on top of what sequential thinking is doing. I will actually leave it in the description. Also, one of them was the playwright, because I wanted to have full control on how the front end is looking, and I just wanted to have a more understanding, and while I'm brainstorming the XUI and so on. Also, I wanted to have my beloved LEANN index MCP, where I have actually been using it for the last 3 months from the beginning of starting using Claude Code. But there was actually a problem on the first version of this toolkit. And so there were a lot of reasons why this was happening, but one of them that actually caught my attention was that I was trying to build this toolkit out of the Ralph toolkit or plugin that is on the market right now. And one of the things that this Ralph toolkit has is it has those scripts. One of them is Ralph script, which was keeping the Claude Code session in a loop until it was actually performing all the tests and the whole code was actually implemented. So basically in the first version, I was running the skill and then let for a few hours, come back, and then the same autonomous problem. So I wanted to build another version of it. So I have started building this tool again, which was now the version 3 after 3 months of actually researching and trying to find out what's the best solution and how you can actually work with Claude Code and not just push code in general. And now we have this Claude Toolkit demo, where we have an API, we have a web. The web is actually a React project, and then the API is built with Go. And so the first thing that we want to do in a project is to go inside the terminal and run this install script. Now I have it inside my personal project. I already have the repository, but you can actually clone it and then install it yourself or use the installation script. Then when we install it, you can say that, okay, we have everything. We have Cloud, we have JK, we have Git, we have GH, which is the GitHub CLI, we have the NPM package installed. So we have all the prerequisites installed, and then it actually detected the project. It can say that this is the Git repository. It can say that, okay, the tech stack is actually Node, Make, Docker, Go, and React. It actually detected also Node and Make and Docker in general, which is actually true. And then for the NCP server configuration, we can see that it lists out all the NCPs that are available. We can also see that one that's required is the deepting. And one of the reasons that I really wanted to make this deepting MCP required is because when you make Claude think or deep dive inside a project or inside an idea, it's better to just make it re-loop on its own thoughts, so then you can have the best out of it. Of course, maybe not all of the time it's actually reasoning and it outputs the best thoughts, but that's why you can actually brainstorm with it and just make it rerun and rerun until you actually have a good understanding and a good plan, and then you can start with, let's say, implementation. Then we also have those optional MCPs, and then I can see that there is a problem in the README file that it doesn't say about the required one and also about the context 7. But Playwright, I wanted to have that also in this toolkit because it helps me, as I said, with the UX UI, and it browses the application while testing it. And then also the LEANN server, my beloved one. And then the context 7, this is one of the MCPs that I have actually found, I think 2 weeks ago, which I have really liked. I have actually found it inside the video on YouTube. I don't remember which video, but I have really liked it. I saw its potential, that you can just go through a lot of documentation, which is up-to-date documentation, find out what has been, for example, changed in a version of Node or React or Svelte or anything like that. So I really like it, and I really wanted to have it for this toolkit. So what we can say that I want to have 2 and 3. We also have deepting, so we can just enter to confirm. About the QA configuration, in ask us, which is a test command, and as you can see in our make file, we have this test command which actually tests the API, the Golang application. So we can just say yes. Then for the linting, we can see here that we have the same make lint. So we are going to just say yes. And then it has installed everything. So I have started my cloud session. Now it actually found one issue. We are going to say doctor. We can see that this issue is from another MCP that I want to build for YouTube videos. So it just says that there is a missing environment variable, nothing with this project that we have. So I have actually asked him to deep dive into small features for this application that we can showcase it. And it actually found out that this is a task manager monorepo application with Go API, Gin, Gorm, SQLite, and a React frontend. And then there is just some bare bones CRUD operations with create task, list them. That's about it. So now it asks us about the small feature that we want to build. So we are just gonna read them. The first one is task status flow, where it just wants to build something with the status transitions from to do, in progress, and done. Due dates for the second one, task filtering and task labels. So we are just gonna have, let's say, the first one. Now I'm just gonna interrupt it because I didn't tell him to create a GitHub issue out of it so I can use it inside the Ralph session. So I can just say create a GitHub issue out of it. So I can just run after. after we have the issue created. So it will just continue the plan mode. Okay, so it actually found out that this is not a repo, there is no repo out of it, so we are just gonna create it right now. Okay, so it has created the GitHub repo, now it's trying to create a GitHub issue. I can see that it tries to add the cloud ready label, which is not found. It tries to create that, and then it tries again to create that GitHub issue. Okay, now it says to exit the plan mode. Yes, I will exit the plan mode. Okay, now let's see the GitHub issue created. Okay, we can see that it has actually done some summary with what has to be implemented, some acceptance criteria, because we really want to have that to test out, to have it for the test-driven development in general, and also manual verification afterwards if there is something to manually verify. And then some technical notes to where it should do some work, like backend, frontend, valid statuses, transition, and so on. And then it also says that this is a P2 medium priority. For us, it doesn't matter right now, but we can go back to the terminal and we can say Ralph issues, actually with 2 dashes and 1. It has some modes. The first one is initialize. It goes, fetches the issue, it reads it. Then it generates some PRD. The PRD, if you don't know the Ralph plugin, PRD is just a document, a JSON document or a file where it writes the whole plan. So it writes from, if we just expand it, we can see here. It writes what are the user stories, what are the source issues, like their ID, what is the description of this PRD. Every session of RAL has its own PRD, so when you want to work in parallel on different sessions, usually you have to do it with a work tree, because PRD has to be getting ignored from the project itself, and it's one per project or session. So for one GitHub issue, it has actually created 3 tasks out of it. One of them, we can see that it adds the status validation to the API. One of them is that it adds the status transition endpoint. One of them is to add the status controls to the front end, and that's it. We also have it here, the labels. So we can see that this is a backend API task and this is a front-end one. And we can also see that each of them has an acceptance criteria. So we can just go back. We can see that it also lists us all the stories. It also has some thoughts about why he wanted to do it like that. We are just gonna approve it now because we like this run. It's just a small GitHub issue. So it also says that there is a decision about the backend stories. It actually says that it has split the backend into 2 stories, one for the validation logic and one for the endpoint, so that each of them are independently tested and reviewable. A single backend story would also work, but would produce a larger diff. Okay, so it wants to do it in small pieces, let's say baby step, which is what I really like. Okay, so it goes to the phase 1, which is understanding. We can see that it uses the LEANN server, so basically it doesn't use normal search or grep. It actually uses the MCP for that, to search for the files. It might be that it has actually need to build the index for this project, because it might not have an index, but let's see. Okay, the index is built. Now it tries to search again to see if the index actually exists. Okay, it has actually found out some files. Okay, so LEANN index is live, Cloud Toolkit with 11 chunks across. You are all set. Run LARF whenever you are ready to pick up from US 001. So we are gonna run it again. It resumes from the existing state. Nice. PRD exists. It actually knows about that, so it just goes inside the phase 1, understanding. Now it runs again a sub-agent for planning. It actually ran 2 of them because it needs to know the planning, and then it also wants to know the architecture of this project. And one of the things that I also wanted to make it to run sub-agents, and this is why it usually does that, is because when you have a context, the main context, and you just make it to search in that main context, it consumes you tokens from that context. So It's better to have sub-agents, spawn them, have their own context, and then they just come back with that output, and then with that it doesn't pollute that much your main context, so you can just focus on your main work on the main context. Okay, so it plans the phase 2. I really like table driven tests. They're actually pretty clean. And if you don't know what's a table driven, I will probably make a video also about that. Okay, so now it says US 001 implementation plan, the step 1, step 2, and step 3 and 4. It says that it wants to add the testify dependency because it doesn't have that. Then the red test, which are gonna fail on the TDD development. Green, that it creates status quo and then the test will run again. And then it wired the validation into the update task handler. Key decisions, we also have some of the key decisions, and then we are just gonna approve it. Okay, so I can see that it has actually added more tasks to the list of the tasks, where it tries to just move them around. I can see that okay, it has already installed this one, so now it goes to the red phase where it writes the failing test. We can also see that this is done on a sub-agent. This is not done through our main context. Okay, so it has finished the implementation. Now it runs a review of the code to see if there is a dead code or anything that's missing. Then there is another one with warning, and which says that is valid and status order are dual source of truth could diverge. Okay, that's true. And then a race condition and concurrent updates acceptable for SQLite. One of them is to fix the warnings, one of them is to approve as is, and one of them is to keep story. We can just say we don't want to skip it or approve it like that, we just want to fix the warnings. It has also added some new use cases on top of what was already implemented. We can see 8 in test screen, and now it updates the state of this PRT. We can also see that there is a progress.txt where it has added some details about this task. Now it moves on to the US 002. I'm just gonna go ahead, do the same process, and then show you the final result. Okay, so the session has finished. It took 26 minutes and 30 seconds to finish it. It has created 36 tests, front-end and back-end combined. It has also created a pull request. It has asked us to do that. We can also go here and see the pull request that it has created. We can see that it says that this will close the GitHub issue 1. We can also see what has changed. We can see the test plan for that. We can see everything was checkboxed. One of the things that we have to do is to manually see if this is working, so we are gonna do that right now. Okay, so there was actually a problem. The main.tsx and the index.html were not written. This is something that Claude didn't find, but let's see now if it's working. Okay, so it's working. Let's add a new task, Claude Code video. We can just add it. We can see that it's in the to-do. We can put it in progress, and we can put it in done. You can also see if we refresh the page, it has actually kept the state, so that means the API is working. So a few takeaways from this video are that we have this tool created where we can just go approve the plan. You can see that it takes around 30 minutes to build something which is not just autonomous. It takes time, it takes a lot of thinking, a lot of deep diving. This was just a little task that I wanted to show you, but it also takes our manual verification. So in general, we are not gonna put AI to do the whole work for us, and then we just come back with a coffee and we can see that our production is working and we are making money. But we can actually see that this tool helps us in building something nice. So you will have everything in the description, all the projects, all the documentation. I hope you like this video. If you like it, leave a like, and see you next time. Bye.